First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory unto the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Basham, Yahushai, Basham, Kadash. I'd like to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who well, who teach us this truth through the Spirit of Yahweh, Basham, Yahushai. And peace and salutation to the Akiams and Maudi who pushing the gospel in sincerity and truth. This is Brother Quara from Trinidad Camp, coming to you with another lesson to feed the elect at the house of Israel. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Right, this lesson I want to do is concern, these East Indians, right? That their fate was not like the fate with the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians face, throughout slavery, and in these latter times here, right? They didn't face, these brutal, these crucial, treatment, under the hands of the so-called white man, they didn't face that rat, right? And the scripture say in Psalm 73 verse 5, they are not in trouble like other men. What we went through slavery, these East Indians didn't, they didn't went through that. Them was being paid, right, for a job. They came across here as immigrants, as indentured laborers, right? They wasn't stolen. They wasn't thieved from their lands. They came across here to do a job. So they didn't face, that judgment with the nation of Israel face, right? Our brother did a lesson on this, he really bring out some good points, I just say, I'm going to do a lesson, let's go a little further, right? To look up the meaning of some words, we could get a good understanding, right? So with the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians face, these East Indians didn't face that. But they will eventually, they soon will. What we went through, all these nations going and go through that. Now the scripture says in Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, that all the curses the Lord put upon Israel, He's going to put it upon the enemies. Right? All that hate and despise the nation of Israel. But you East Indians, you all hate and despise the children of Israel. Right? You all were happy, you all rejoice, you all glad. You all had part in oppressing them and all also. Right? By calling them all these proverbs and bywords, by calling them a nigger, you all baboons, you all monkey, you all Africans, you all cotton pickers, all working for free. That is why white man treating all like that, because all is no good and all these things, right? Where does come from these East Indians? They are enemies unto Israel, right? So they then face what we went through for breaking the law, statutes, and commandments. They didn't face that. Because a lot of them like to say, the people was into slavery too. But the people was not into slavery because they didn't came across here in chains. They didn't came across here with no yoke of iron around the neck. And they wasn't stolen from the lands. So it's not the same. So we go look up some meaning of some words. Right? So we go read this article here. They say indentured labor from South Asia in 1834 to 1917. He said after the abolition of slavery, newly free men and women refused to work for low wages offered on the sugar farms in British colonies. In the West Indies, indentured labor was a system of bond labor that was instituted following the abolition of slavery. Indentured labor were recruited to work on sugar, cotton, and tea plantation and rail construction projects in Britain colonies. In West Indies, Africa, and Southeast Asia, right, from 1834 to the end of the World War One, Britain had transported about 2 million indentured workers to the 19 colonies, including Fiji, Mauritius, Ceylon, Trinidad, Guyana, Malaysia, Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa. The indentured workers, known as the derogatively as coolies, were recruited from India, China, and from the Pacific, and signed a contract in their own countries to work abroad for a period of 5 years or more. They were meant to receive wages, a small amount of land, and in some case promise of a return passage once their contract was over. Right? So they wasn't stolen. Right? So they are not in trouble like other men where we face. They didn't face that. Right? Even though they was working for a minimum wage. Right? But the nation of Israel, we wasn't working for that. We was working for free. Because we were sold unto our enemies. We become their possession, their property. So they was doing whatever they want with the property, working us to death, giving us food, and doing us what they want. Right? And all these things happen unto the nation of Israel because they transgress against the Maker. Right? So before we go into the scriptures, we go look up some meaning, some words. So we look up the meaning of indentured. Right?
Indenture.
Say indenture. To bind someone by an indenture as an apprentice or a laborer. Right? To learn a trade. Right? You're learning a trade. As an apprentice, you're learning a trade. You could be paid, might be a little finance, a little money, it mightn't be big, because you're learning a trade. Right? Or a laborer, you're doing a manual work, right, for money. Right? We could look up that, a
laborer.
A person doing an unskilled manual work for wages. Right? So they so-called the East Indians, them, right, when they came across here, they was being paid. Right? They were being paid. Right? Wages. There was exchanging labor for money. But these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, or the House of Israel, they didn't have it like that. Right? Because they transgress against the Maker, and the Lord bring these curses upon them, that these things gonna happen to them. Right? You can read that in Ezekiel 39 verse 23. And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity. Iniquity means sin. Right? Because they trespass against me. Therefore hid I my face from them, and gave them into the hands of their enemies. And so fell they all by the sword. So the Lord gave us into the hands of our enemies for slaves. You can read that in the book of Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. You see, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I speak unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there he shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So the Lord is going to bring us into Egypt. Right? It doesn't mean, back into Egypt, into that land. Right? Because Egypt was slavery. Right? You can read that in Exodus 20 verse 2. He say, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. which means slavery, right? You could look up the meaning of bondage also.
Bondage.
Right? They say the state of being a slave. Right? Slavery, enslavement, servitude. Right? So you go back in Deuteronomy 28, actually verse 68. So you say, you're going to sell us into slavery again for bondmen and bondwomen. Right? So these East Indians, so-called Persians, they didn't face these conditions where we went through. Right? We faced that. Right? Where we went through for transgression against Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Right? So if you look up, right, in enough bondmen, they say a male slave, a man bound to service without wages. Right? Because we became their possession. We became their property. Right? So the East Indians them didn't face that judgment. Right? We face that punishment because we break the law, statutes, and commandments. And the scripture say in Amos 3 verse 1. He said, hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. Right? So when we break the law, statutes, and commandments, there is the things where the Lord say He's going to bring upon us. Right? And He's going to sell us into the hands of another people. Right? So the East Indians them didn't face that judgment. Right? Their children wasn't being sold. Right? Their children wasn't being taken from them and sold to other people. They wasn't being persecuted. Right? Like what the nation of Israel faced. Right? The scripture says in Deuteronomy 28 verse 41. He said, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Right? These things doesn't happen to these East Indians. So the scripture says in Psalm 73 verse 5, they are not in trouble like other men. Your nations not in trouble like other men. We are in trouble. We being oppressed under the hands of y'all. Right? So you to look up the meaning of this word here, go back into slave. Right? Right? They say slave to work hard. Right? And the scriptures say, right in Deuteronomy 28 verse 65, right? He said, and among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but thou shalt give thee a trembling heart, and feeling of eyes, and a sorrow of mind. So we will be to work very hard, no rest. Right? Working without food, being beaten, right? All sort of cruel treatment the nation of Israel face under these enemies, under the so-called white man. Right? We'll go back into it again. Slave now. You see a person who is owned by another person and can be sold at the owner's will. Right? So that scripture say your sons and daughters will be sold and they shall go into captivity because they what Esau do. Right? He owns us. We are his possession. Right? So he sold we unto other people, he sold we unto to the four corners of the earth. Right? A person who is strongly influenced and controlled by something. Right? To work very hard for long hours under difficult conditions. Right? And days where the nation of Israel face. The scripture in Zechariah 11 verse 5. Right? He said, who possesses slay them, but we are the possession. Right? Who possesses slay them, right, and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherd pity them not. Right? So they sell us to the four corners of the earth. Right? And hey, all the plantation owners, they deal brutal with the nation of Israel. The scripture say, hey, he saw a man of fierce countenance. He will show no regard to the old or to the young. Right? So what the nation of Israel face, persecution, being slaughtered, seeing their wife ravished, men lynched, the men slaughter like sheeps, like hogs. Right? These East Indians them didn't face that. Right? Their children wasn't being used as bait, right? For alligators. But the children of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indian, their children was being used for bait and these things. So you so-called Persians, you East Indians, you all didn't face. You all didn't face what Israel face. But you all about to. You all about to face every bit of it. Right? We go read it, Deuteronomy 30, verse 7. He say, and the Lord Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. All you nation hate the nation of Israel. All. Right? And you all rejoice, you all was glad that, hey, the Lord did this to us. Right? You all rejoice. So now the time, hey, we gonna rejoice when the Lord gonna do this to you all. Right? Because, hey, the Lord gonna have mercy upon Jacob. Right? I scripture in Isaiah 14, verse 3. He said, and it shall come to pass. Here, listen to these words carefully. And it shall come to pass, that it coming to pass, it will happen. Right? And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall give thee rest. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, who are Israelites, you're going to give them rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. Right? We were sold into slavery. Right? The Lord going to give us rest. And He's going to put these curses upon all here. Right? So we're going to get a rest. All you're going to be in position where Israel was. When the Lord bring the curses upon Israel, and we in slavery, all you're going to be in that low state now. We're going to be the head, and you're all going to be the tail. Right? You're all going to be brought low. And this is what coming by the hands of Yahweh Basham, Yahushai. Right? And with that, hope it was edifying. I'd like to give all praises and glory unto the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Basham, Yahushai, Basham, Akakadash. I'd like to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutation to the Akim Zemodi, pushing the gospel in sincerity and truth. Is your brother Quara saying, hey, Shalom.